Friends singing on jet skis on the Sea of Galilee. Yeah, that seems almost derailment. There should be rowboats.
Okay, he will open the gate only when we are together. So let's go. Hey, Father, can you open the gate for us?
No, I got it. But we need to share it between the guys to explain.
It's like that since May.
Got it.
I will spread it now.
We should tell Jesse he's around to do it.
No, I have 56
Tell him to do it. You want to go? Okay.
Yes.
Sorry. It's a new deal over here because the water level is so high they don't have enough space on the shore. So they want us to visit the church first and then the shore and then out.
This is like when you go on the highway, before you go on the on-ramp, there's a green light.
I guess
theoretically
no. You can look for it.
So we need to go in there first.
Interesting, because of the Arabs having conquered Spain, there is some very clear historical continuity between Mexican music and a lot of Arabic music, even flamenco and you know, some of the different things like that.
Yeah, you can kind of hear that. D-A-B-K-E, music and dancing, that's Lebanese big time.
Okay.
Just to see what that was all
Yeah, that
about.
sounds very Arab to me.
But it's not that song.
I have a feeling those are Israelis. had disciples. He had people that were following him. And he looked at Jesus, and he walked, as Jesus walked by, and he said, it's at the end of the film that we did, the Ballads of the Exodus, where you've got this Hebrew guy that he's John the Baptist. He's a big burly guy, and he just yells, and he's like, "Behold the Lamb of God," you know, in Hebrew. And it's just such a beautiful, when he's excited, and again, they're young, right? Like, he says, "Behold the Lamb of God." The 2 disciples heard him say this, and then they followed Jesus. John the Baptist's ministry was to release his disciples to go on to follow Jesus. And it's like having children. We must decrease, they must increase, you know. Jesus turned and he saw them following, and he said, "What are you seeking?" And they said, "Rabbi, teacher, where are you staying?" And he says, "Come, and you will see." So they came, and they stayed with him that day, for it was about the 10th hour. One of the 2 who heard John speak and followed after Jesus was Andrew, Peter's brother. So Peter's brother Andrew had been a disciple. So there was, you know, even though they frame them as just these, you know, sort of non-religious fishermen, Andrew at least had already been following. There was something stirring in the land. There was messianic, apocalyptic expectations. Are we reaching the fulfillment of all this? And they were looking, they were searching. I just, you know, that's part of the story. And then later, of course, they become Jesus' disciples, and it goes on and it describes more of that. I just want to say this. So, you know, we're called as Christians to engage in evangelism, go out and share the gospel. And I'm an extrovert, okay? Every introvert, when they hear we need to do event, just cringes, like, oh, it's the part that I hate. I don't really like it. I don't like the word evangelism. But you know what I like doing? I like talking to people. And it's so funny how when we use these religious terms, now we are all called, Jesus was very clear, the pattern in this life is to make disciples. That's how he started this whole thing. It's not a question. We are commanded to make disciples. In the same way that evangelism is a hard, horrible, difficult, uncomfortable word, making disciples is a really hard word. But here's the thing. You know, I just turned 50. There's that, well, there's that kind of weird thing that happens. I was going to say, like, okay, you know, I wrote my first New York Times bestselling book. I was 31. I was a kid. But at 31, I didn't think I was a kid at the time. But there's this weird thing that happens when you go from being a lost child in your 30s to suddenly you're 50 and people start looking to you as a father, right? And like, you know, I lost my dad 2 years ago. Like, it doesn't matter if you're 70. I mean, I'm assuming 80 years old. We all still feel like we need a father, right? Like, we still always, but here's the thing. We have enough wisdom. We have enough experience. We have enough to impart. And so we're all called to make disciples. We don't like that. But here's the thing that everyone here can do, and we can be faithful. We can pour into others. Yeah. We can find others and recognize and value the fact that we have enough wisdom and experience. We've walked with the Lord long enough. We've been faithful disciples. You know, yeah, we've stumbled along the way, but we've made it this far. And it's so important as the church is hemorrhaging, shrinking, the great falling away, that we're faithful, that we're mindful, that we're cognizant of making disciples. And again, that's a hard word. Just think, find someone, maybe they're 5 years younger, maybe they're 3 years older, you know, but find people and invite them into your life, to have meals, to get coffee. And all it means is hanging out with people and being mindful. You know, evangelism is just looking for people to talk to. So like when I travel and speak, this is funny. If I was to go travel at some church and I said I'm doing an evangelism seminar, no one shows up. 5 people show up. In the charismatic world, if you do an evangelism seminar, but you just call it School of the Supernatural, everyone shows up. They're so excited. And all you're doing is teaching them how to do evangelism. Yeah. And so it's funny just how when you frame things, word things differently. The Lord said, my yoke is easy, my burden is light. He didn't give us commandments that we're just like, I can't do evangelism. He's like, but if you don't do it, you are an unfaithful servant. He gave us commandments that are easy if we partner with him and we simply, you know. So I'm just saying there's a lot of things that we're commanded to do, one of which is make disciples. We can do it. I just want to encourage you all as you leave here to be mindful, to be thoughtful. This is just a little exhortation. Jesus' whole ministry and his pattern, the way that he started this whole revolution. We are who we are today because he chose 12 kids and he poured into them for the time that he had, and then they turned this whole world upside down. And it's that this is the nature of the way the Lord does things. It begins in very mundane, simple, everyday little conversations and activities. And later you look at what's happened and you go, oh my goodness, the butterfly effect. So that's the exhortation. The other thing that I just want to encourage us all in is the issue of endurance, patient endurance. And this is the essence of what it means to be a disciple. Anybody can be a disciple for a year. Anyone can be a disciple, the strong ones, for 5, 10 years. But as we all know, it's consistency, it's endurance, it's patience that wins the race. And, you know, again, we've made it this far. I'm looking at my life now. I'm 50, which means, you know, I'm basically, roughly, I got about a third left. But, you know, a little more than half of my life, I've walked with the Lord. I'm basically halfway there. I can do it. Sometimes it feels hard, you know what I'm saying? Like, being faithful day in and day out can feel hard. But it's, you know, of all of the different, if you survey the New Testament, all of the Christian virtues that are really emphasized, you know, love, faith, all these, like, there's a lot of things that are emphasized. Very rarely in church do we really emphasize this issue of patience. And I prefer the word, because I think it's more accurate, long-suffering. And the bottom line is, following Jesus, one of the, you know, basic things, that one of the most basic principles it means to follow Jesus is to learn how to suffer for a long time. And we need to get that down. Like, no one preaches that, and it's like, hey, Sunday we're going to talk. But look, that's Christianity 101. Suffering faithfully for a really long time until the very end. And, you know, even sometimes I almost like share my life too much, but, you know, just even in my own life, my wife being sick, this and that, it's you know, she goes to bed really early usually when she's hurting, and so I'll just sit on the back patio and pray, and I just, like, night after night, I bring my laments to the Lord. I say, this is my cross, and you know, usually what we do is we think of our crosses, whatever it is in our lives, and then we buck. We're like, Lord, change it, change it. And I don't do that. I just say, this is what it is. And I look to your throne, I look to your face, and I say, yes. If this is the cross that I have to endure for the next 1/3, for the next 30 years or so, 30, 35, whatever it is, yes. You did it, I can do it, because you live in me. And this is just, again, basic Christianity. No one preaches it. It's not popular American Christianity. But that's everyone, really, except for arguably, I mean, all of the disciples basically understood the basic principle of what it meant to imitate and follow him. So the whole process began probably, you know, right here or very close to here. There's amazing power in that. But we are the successors. We're no different than those kids that he called back then. Yeah. We're part of the story just as much as they are. So, amen.
Amen.
Very good.